far there's 3 models. There's an Ideal 7, an 8 and a 9. Ideal 7 has a single rotor and it has the same sieve system as this machine. The Ideal 8, as this one, has 2 rotors and sharing the sieve system with the 7. And then there's the Ideal 9 that still has 2 rotors and a bit bigger sieve system. So that's the main difference in the machine. The physical size and the tires and grain tank and feeder house and everything, that's the same on all the machines. So there's a little difference, but when you look at it, it looks the same. For the start, when you're coupling the header onto the machine, there's a handle to lock the header onto the machine. There's a multifunction lever to put the hydraulics onto the machine. It's pretty simple. There is on each side of the machine there's a sensor. That sensor is measuring how much you are feeding into the machine, and that is one of the ways the machine is controlling its forward speed in Harvest Plus. So there's some different manual settings in the machine. We can take a look around in the cab when we finish, and I'll show it to you. Then there's this block. This one is for high or low precision. It's for high crop volume or low crop volume. Here in the Nordics it has to be on high precision all the time, no matter what you're harvesting, because otherwise you won't get the proper feeding into the machine. And then there is a tensioner in each side. That tensioner is it's very important that it has the right tension, otherwise this sensor can't measure what it's supposed to if you want to run in a harvest cluster. So that's the basic here in the feeder house. The split gear comes from another gearbox on the start of the machine. This is where you couple on the header, and the axle goes across the whole machine, and there's also a shaft over here. That's more if you have a bigger header, you have to count the header over here as well. The crop is going into the machine. In here there's sitting a feed accelerator. The feed accelerator divides the crop into both rotors, so it feeds it in nice and even so you get a better flow into the machine. When we go to the rotor side, it splits into two. There's sort of a funnel out here and it splits into both rotors. These are your threshing grades. This is where all the threshing has to happen, and also a big part of the separation. But this is the threshing. In here there's 8 rasp bars. They are about 60 centimeter, and that's they are rubbing to the concaves and makes the nice quality in the grain tank. The reason why they are about 60 centimeter is they are more gentle to the material that's going through the machine. That's also why an Ideal is very good at making good straw quality. So instead of many other competitors that have some smaller threshing bars and they're running a lot harder on the material, they can't make as nice straw quality as this machine can. And it's more gentle to the crop as well, so you won't break any grain like other machines can do it. So the material falls onto these plastic pans. They're called Ideal Balance. The front pan is sort of putting the material a bit more into the center, and the pan in the back is way larger. It's moving the material a bit more to the side of the machine before it goes into the whole sieve system and goes into the elevators and goes to the grain tank. So it's a way to divide the crop onto the pans and onto the sieve system. The fan is hydraulically driven, so you can run it from all the way from 300 RPM all the way up to up to maximum without have to do any changes or using tools or anything. So that's pretty simple. When you open up this door in here, there's a toolbox. Pretty big toolbox compared to other machines as well. When you open up the full door, you have there's another tensioner for your belt to the fan. This hydraulic box, this little valve, controls the chaff spreader on the back. That's the only way you can adjust the spreading width on your chaff spreader. It's on this one. Otherwise, you have your access to your batteries, fuse line over there. This is your return system. It collects the grain from the bottom, takes it all the way up here and throws it into the machine. If you have some problem with not getting the return material clean enough, there is some other doors. This door, and there is a door in the bottom you can change, so it's more aggressive to the material. But it's also some of the places where you can break the grain, so be careful to install those. It's more a last thing to do if you can't get it clean enough.
Does those come as standard to the combine always?
No, if you want these extra doors, that you have to buy the AGCO parts. Yeah. So that's an extra thing you have to buy. This is the shaft that goes to the feeder, to the header. This whole gearbox controls it. It's hydraulically driven, and that's also one of the reasons it can return. It can reverse. There's reverse system on the header, and there's also a creep function. So if you do block the header, you can put it into creep mode, and it just slowly feeds in the material that's in the header, so you don't damage anything, so you don't start it in full speed and it blocks again, so you can feed it in nice and slowly and be more gentle to the machine. Over here there is the shear bolt for the unloading auger. The whole unloading system is this belt, and that's the shear bolt. So if you should be unlucky to break it, it's sitting here. It's pretty easy to reach. It's easy to reach when there's tires on it compared to a machine with tracks on. There's a hydraulic cylinder right here. That cylinder, we can see it in the grain tank as well. But in the grain tank there is some spouts that control how much you can unload. And that's one of the cylinders to control that. The whole power from the engine goes through that gearbox. There's a shaft going to the front, to the header, and then a belt to the back to run the rotor. At the rotor gear there's going a shaft all the way across to run the chopper on the other side. When we go further the rotor, these are only for like threshing. And then there's some other grates here in the back, they're called finger grates. They're only for separation. They can't do any threshing or anything. On an Ideal 8, there's 4 blank plates in the back to minimize the material on the sieve system. On an Ideal 9, there's taken 2 off, and on an Ideal 10, there's another 2 taken off. Step, there's a clutch for the chopper drive. And that's for turning the chopper on and off in the cab. So a tap in the cab and the chopper goes back and it turns off the belt. Right behind you have the fuel and jet. AdBlue. Pretty easy to go to. There's an air filter, and because the fan is cleaning out the whole radiator system, it's not necessary to do as much cleaning on the on the filter. So a couple of times a week you'll have to check it, but it's not a daily thing to check. Right behind you, there's one of the whole exhaust system that's in this box, and that's one of the. It's a good thing to keep clean every day because it does get hot. It can get really hot. I know it's a bit colder when you have it up here, but it can get really hot, and if there's too much dust on it, it's just important to keep clean in there. There's a hydraulic tank sitting right here. There's glass sitting next to it where you can see the oil level.
Is there anything fire alarms here in exhaust system?
No, there's not. In Denmark we put it on fire extinguisher system, but that's mainly for insurance wise. And it does get a bit warmer in Denmark when you harvest, so I don't think you would see any issues. We have just seen some places in the beginning of last year in Romania that it got a bit too hot around the exhaust system. And that's also why they have put some more wrapping foil around the whole exhaust system to prevent it to get so hot.
But if you have a air pressure here,
Yeah.
so why don't put some hoses and some blowers to clean it once in a while?
Yeah, that's true. It should not be a difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
So the engine in the Ideal 8 and 9, that's an MAN engine. It's two different, but it's MAN, and in an Ideal 7 it's an AGCO power engine. They're pretty easy to service. There's an oil pin right there, and there's a door in the grain tank, so you can service it from the other side when you have to do the the filters and so on the engine. But it's pretty easy to service. Can you open that one? There's not much to see, but that's down to the whole radiator system, the whole thing. And no matter when you look into it, it's clean. It keeps it very clean. The grain tank on the machine, there's two versions. You can have a 12,800 liter or a 17,100 liter. This is the big grain tank, and there's two sensors on it, a 75% sensor and a 100% sensor, and it gives an alarm in the cab. There's also a sensor sitting in the bottom right here.
Okay.
So if there is a little bit of grain in the grain tank, you can't close it. So it has to be completely empty before you open and close the grain tank. And these doors, these ones, are for controlling the rate, unloading rate. So you can put it on 25, 50, 75 or 100%. And you do it from the cab. So if it's very wet, or you have a small trailer or something that you won't overfill, it's easy to slow down the unloading rate and get the proper thing. So that's a good thing about it. The antenna for the GPS is sitting inside the grain tank, so the grain tank has to be open before there's any GPS signal.
Is there something auto guide system or what antenna? Or
Yeah, that's for auto guidance.
okay.
Yeah.
Näin. Olisikohan iso kalla?
Now under here there's the you can get down to the top of the grain tank. They're also down to the sensor that's measuring the yield. So that's down below this one. Just a quick walk around the header. On the left hand side, all the pulling of the header is happening. The PTO shaft is coming from the front and goes in here and runs the box for the knife drive and the chain for the feed auger and the belts for the power flow. On each side there's sitting a adjustment, so you can adjust the height on the feed auger in the middle. And there's another tensioner here for tightening up the chain. But other than that, there's not much to do on this side. It's just a whole running system. If we keep going a little bit forward, the knife, it's the Schumacher system. So the knives are sitting opposite each other all the way through, and that makes sure that you have the perfect cut all the time. Some competitors has a bracket sitting here on top, and they have all the knife sections sitting like this. So you need a bracket on top to hold it down to make the perfect cut all the time. But because it's a Schumacher system, you don't need that. The power flow belts, there's not much maintenance to it. If you take this one off, you can, there's the tension of the belt sitting here, but normally it's not necessary to do anything in here. But this one you have to take off if you have to change a power flow belt or look at the chain. But other than that, there's nothing to do in there. The most important thing to do on a power flow is these holes there is up to where the power flow belts goes to each other. It's very important to keep it clean, because if you don't keep it clean, all the dust and stuff that'll be in the belts is accumulating into the belts. But it's important to get all the material out, and they are made in a way so all the dirt will fall out in this hole. On each side there's sitting some sensors, and they are for height control. There's only in each side, not in the middle, like some competitors have. But I've seen some places where they have been full of mud or dirt or whatever, and then they can get stuck and it won't work properly. And then you'll just have to go out and pull them down and clean underneath the header, and they work perfect again. The reel, to help in the crop, there's an adjustment in each side how aggressive it's supposed to be. The feed drum in the middle takes the material into the middle, into the combine. Those pins that's sitting there, they can also be adjusted from the end of the right hand side of the header. So depending on what crop you are running in and how aggressive they are, how aggressive they are feeding in the material, it can be necessary to adjust it once in a while. On this side, there's an adjustment for the height, and this handle, you loosen these bolts and you can adjust the pins, how aggressive the pins are. I don't think it's very easy, but on the top up there, on the other side, there's sitting a handle to adjust the fingers on the reel. Go to the front. There's a bracket for crop lifters if that's necessary. Otherwise, there's the hookup right here. and where you lock it, and PTO shaft and the multi-coupler. So it's pretty simple header. Any questions from anyone? Between the machines, the Ideal 7 is a single rotor machine. It has the same sieve system as this machine, and it has an AGCO power engine. The Ideal 8, as this one, is two rotor system. The same sieve system as on the 7. The rotor, the separator part here in the back is blinded off with 4 blind concaves, so there can't be any separation there. And it has an MAN engine with 540 horsepower. The Ideal 9 has 2 rotors. There's a blind plate taken out, so there's more separation. It has a bigger sieve system, and it has a MAN engine with 650 horsepower. But except for that, you can put the same equipment on all the machines. The chaff spreader, the grain tank, everything is the same. Same tire configuration. Everything is the same on the machines. This door is the place to open to get the water out. That's sort of the only place. There's also a door on the other side, but it doesn't drain out the water. So if you get a lot of water or want to clean it out, this is the place to do it. So this is your armrest, your control of the machine, your multifunction lever. There's header up and down, the real function. This scroll button is for the unloading. You scroll it, it goes out. When you want to unload, you push it and it unloads. This is the main stop button. It stops the forward speed and it stops the header. This is for controlling the header automatically up and down. This is your guidance. This is your headland management. In this button you can have 2 different settings, cutting heights. When you push it once and the machine is running, this mark there will be green and it will say 1. So that's your first cutting height, and you can push it again and it will say 2. So you can have 2 different cutting heights depending on what crop you're harvesting. If you're harvesting, your normal crop and you have crop that's lying down, you can put it down to lie down crop and you can harvest that. These functions in this area is for main controlling the machine, so you don't have to go into the terminal. So it's shortcuts for the rotor speed, the concave clearance, the fan speed, upper sieve and bottom sieve. So that's just, you can always see what you're doing on this screen up here, and then you can just push the buttons and it'll change. This is your speed for your transmission. That's a turtle and a rapid. The turtle is for field drive, the rapid is for road drive. There's the differential lock, there's a road mode button. If we push the road mode button now, the grain tank is open, so we can't go into road mode. So we'll have to close the grain tank before we can go to road mode and go 40. These 2 buttons are for electric plugs on the header if you have rape knives. These are for controlling your rape knives.
Is it like on the left side and the right side?
Yes.
So aux1 for the left and aux2 for the right if you want? Or?
Yes, okay. Yes, they're for each their side.
Yeah.
And opening and closing the grain tank. If you want to unfold the grain, the unloading auger, you have to go into the menu. But this is for the grain tank. The unloading rate, plus and minus. If you have a look up here, it says 50% now. If I push One time up, it goes to 75. And push down, it goes down to 25. So that's the way you control it, and you can see how much it's unloading. This is the width of the chaff spreader setting. If we go to the terminal, this screen up here, it will be the same. But the other ones you can change. This is like on your tractors. You go into the main menu and you can push the button whatever you like to see. If you want a camera or the Isobus menu or the Info Plus menu or guidance, this is for the service guys, that icon there. But the other ones are for the operator to use. To go in and, for example, select a new crop, you'll have to use the Isobus menu. So we press OK. We go into the Isobus menu. Just start from the beginning. This is the screen it will come up with normally. So you can see your yield, and you can also calibrate your moisture and calibrate your yield monitor. If you go up here and choose there, you can choose your crop.
Yeah.
Whatever crop you choose and you push the green button, the machine will automatically start to do the factory settings. We go back. The only difference from this terminal to the tractor terminals is the combine icon. All the combine settings are in this terminal, in this menu. So it doesn't matter if it's the header height you want to control, or if it's the reel or the automatic functions. It's in the combine menu. This is where you also can see your cutting height. You can put it into 15. You can put this one a little bit lower, down to 10 if you have some crop that's lying down. If it goes very low, it goes on the field pressure. So if it goes all the way down, it'll go automatically onto the field pressure, so it lifts the feeder house up and down. So this is the pressure on the feeder house. The more pressure that's on it, the easier it lifts up the header. The less pressure that's on it, the more heavy it's lying on the ground. There's also this button to control the angle of the feeder house, the feeder house, so the header to the ground. But because it's a power flow header, it should usually be on 0, so it's level with the ground.
Yep.
The automatic, this is the Harvest Plus. There's constant speed 1 and 2. They can also be controlled from here. These two buttons. When you want to put it into the constant speed or the capacity speed, you push the button on the side and move it to the side, and then this one turns green. The button there turns green, and then it's engaged to the Harvest Plus. So in Harvest Plus, to set it up, you'll have to put in a minimum speed and a maximum speed, and then this bar is the load on the feeder house, the sensors I showed you before. So it would never go more than 70% capacity or more than 8 kilometers an hour in this case. We can put it down to 5 or 6 kilometers an hour, so it would never go faster than 6 and don't go more than 70%. And this is how fast it's reacting to these two things. The guidance has to be started here every time. This one, in this menu, is the only place where you can unfold the last bit of the unloading auger. There's no shortcut for that. There's the creep function. If you block the feeder house and you reverse so it's free again, you can put onto the creep function and just slowly turn the header on, and it will slowly feed in the material so you don't block the machine again. So it's more gentle to the machine. Yeah. The rest of the controls over here is like on the tractors. Setting up the guidance system, it's like on the tractors, and the documentation is also like on the tractors, depending on what you want to choose.
Can you get the border lines from the tractor with the automatic steering that you can?
Yes, you can.
Bring it in.
Yes, you can.
With the
If you have a Trimble GPS system or another GPS system, you have to convert the lines into the terminal knows the lines, but you can convert the lines into this machine. But if it's from a Fendt machine to a Fendt machine, there's no problem.
Yeah.
There's no problem at all.